Hey gang, welcome back to CirdecSongs and a CirdecSongs chat with my guest, who's a good friend of mine, and we'll get to him in just a second. As always, I beg you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, forward this here thing so your friends know about it. I guarantee you they'll enjoy it. And hit that notification bell so you know when I do this kind of thing again. Hopefully, I'll be doing it a couple of times a week. My guest I have known since, oh God, I'm thinking around 1996, 1997 in that general neighborhood when I first started playing guitar and I wandered into the shop where he works. He is an unbelievable musician, and I'm going to prove that by telling you what kind of talent he has, and he'll explain it. He's part of what I'm liking to call right now St. Louis Home Week. He's one of my favorite St. Louis people. His name is Jimmy Griffin. Jimmy, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing good, man. Good to see you.
Ah, you too. You too. It's been far too long. In fact, I don't. I saw you. That was last year's El Monstero gig,
Oh, the
but
Living Color one, yeah.
yeah, and almost and rarely before that. It was just nice to be in the second row of the photo pit and just trade glances and what have you, and
Uh-huh.
remind me to tell the El Monstero story from the pageant. That's just one of my favorite moments with you. But
Okay.
let's start with the basic stuff. You've been in music for a long time. Tell us the story of your life in terms of how you got started.
Oh man, it started with Kiss when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and that made me want to play the guitar loud and play rock and roll. Um, Progress from that to your basic. I grew up in Ohio, so um, your classic rock of that era. The Who,
Of
the
course.
Stones, Beatles, Aerosmith, all the good stuff. Um, and I started playing professionally when I was 17. I joined my
Wow.
first bar band with a bunch of guys that were older that came and saw um, my high school band at a teen club that they were too old to get in because they were all in their 20s. Which one of the things I just did a talk at like a high school a couple of months ago about how this works and how you get into it and things like this, and uh, probably one of the things that changed my trajectory more than anything in my whole life was I had guitar lessons at Duke's. Do you
Okay.
know Duke Mishlak, who's a
I
guitar
don't re-
instructor?
I don't remember, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Guitar instructor in St. Louis. Myself, Richard Fortis, Jerry Jost, like a bunch of dudes that play a lot of guitar in St. Louis real good all took lessons from Duke. Okay. He was kind of the
Nice.
Yoda of South County. And so the guy before me at lessons was this guy, Dan Drab, who wound up being in a band in St. Louis called New World Spirits that was kind of popular in the 90s.
That I
Uh,
remember. Yeah.
Very popular, actually.
Yep.
And I knew Danny played in a bar band. And so, which I thought was the coolest thing you could do. So as soon as his lesson was over, he had lessons before me, I would immediately sit down and play like every, like, you know, rock lick that I had as fast as I could, and do all that stuff. And a couple months later, when he was leaving his band, they were like, well, what are we supposed to do? He was moving to California, and he said, you should check out this kid that has guitar lessons after me at Duke's. And that's when they came and saw my band. That's when I started, and I was working 4 or 5 nights a week and going to high school. So I would
Huh.
get home at 1 o'clock in the morning and wake up and go to high school in the morning, and then get home, do whatever homework I could get together, and then I had to be at the gig usually at 6. This is
Oh
in the
wow.
days when clubs didn't have lights and PA. You did. So
Right.
you had to load in, set up all this stuff, and then, and play, and then tear it all down and put it back in the truck. And so it was a long day. And
Yes.
that's how it started. Um, and I bounced over the next couple of years through a couple of other bands and I kept, each time I would go up, to the next tier of gigs and people that I was playing for, and those kinds of things. and musicians as well. I was playing with better and better musicians. And then I met the guys in King of the Hill. Um, and then that became my life for about 5 years. And that band played upwards of 26 to 27 days a month, 3 hours a night. That's how I learned how to be on stage, how to perform, how to play for people. And that band got a record deal. That band toured the world. We were on MTV. We did, all the fun stuff that you want to do when you're a kid and you want to be an electric guitar player. Yes. We got dropped when I was 23, and I was spit out the bottom of the music industry. And from that point on, I had to decide, how much do you love this, and what else can you do to keep playing music? And right. That's where I am today, was keeping my eyes and ears open, trying new things, doing things I never thought I would do, that always open an avenue into something else and make you a better musician.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Very nice. That sounds about right. It sounds about right. You're the one that lived it. I wasn't there. But when we met in, I'm going to say 96. That's about
it was right around there. Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't been on the job. No, I'm lying. It had to be 97 because I've been, that's right when I got transferred down to that area. For some reason, for those of you who don't know, folks, I was a police officer for 25 years. That's what the pictures are behind me. And for some reason, the fools put me in a district where there was a guitar shop. So I had, I could hang out.
We were your
there.
Donut shop.
Exactly. You were my donut shop. And what you also said, I love, this is your donut shop, except the glaze is a lot more expensive.
Right.
which is completely accurate. But when we met, you were playing in a group called Neptune Crush. And I'm still a fan. I'm still a fan.
I liked that band too,
Yeah. I break out that CD.
Yeah, that was there was that weird period in the 90s, like, because if you were an 80s guy, you kind of had to redirect. There's a lot of 80s guys that like went into country music, because country still looked like 80s. They right. All of a sudden, nobody wanted the Bon Jovi Light Show, but Garth Brooks wanted the Bon Jovi Light Show. And
go
so
figure.
if you, a lot of those guys did that. Dude, there was a time in the 90s when, like, I couldn't get a gig and trombone players were the coolest dudes. And I was like, how did that happen? Like, I can't get a gig and this trombone guy is cool. And, so that was a kind of a phase. And this is some of the things that, come along with things that you listen to over time. And I know your love of Crimson and stuff like that. And I always loved Adrian Belew from like the Lone Rhino era and Twangbar King and like those kinds of things. I always appreciated him making noise with the guitar. Yes. And that was Neptune Crush, and that era of guitar playing was like nobody wanted to hear you go like this. They wanted to hear the guitar not sound like a guitar. And I enjoyed that part of it, was playing with effects and making strange noises and doing things that weren't necessarily acrobatic on the instrument, and more creative sonically. So that was what I was doing in that band at that time.
Cool. Well, I call it manipulating sound, and that's what I want to do. I still want to do that right now. It's like, okay, let me step on this ZVEX Fuzz Factory and just make a strange racket and see how it fits in context with what we're doing. But I really dug Neptune Crush because it was, and this is your band, so feel free to correct me, but in my head it was kind of glam meets industrial meets that kind of experimental type sound, and it's been a while since I played this, but I seem to remember kind of a heavy bottom end to it.
Yes, yeah, it was a lot of we were really into a band called Sparkle Horse at that point. Sparkle Horse is kind of like, I don't know, if Tom Waits and I'm trying to think of what the other, I was going to say like Tom Waits and Pink Floyd
Which would
But
be
yeah,
interesting.
maybe a little bit of that. But everything just sounds dirty and everything's broken, and we were really into that, and just writing songs and then placing things sonically around them that made it interesting. The songs were pretty simple, but the instrumentation was kind of what we were going for, was to make something sound weird.
Right. Well, it
Yeah.
worked. It
Yeah.
worked, and I really enjoyed it. Let's rewind for a hot minute, because you are one of 3 or 4 people that I call friends who have been on MTV. For those of you who are of a certain age, there was a time when MTV actually focused on music, because the M in MTV stands for
Yeah.
music. Go figure. But anyway, so in the
Yeah.
90s, they actually showed music videos. You were actually in one. What does that feel like from your standpoint, from the standpoint of the people who know you and have known you for a while?
Oh, it's funny because people see it now and they're like, what were you guys doing? Like, what was this? And it's like, well, the bands used to make videos, to sell the record and stuff like that, and to promote or to give a visual commentary on what the band was about.
Right.
But now looking back at it, the first thing I see is that's how you spend $180,000 in one day.
No problem.
That first video was seriously, it was in an airplane hangar in Van Nuys, California.
Makes sense.
That stage was a football field wide. It was 100 yards wide. Okay.
Wow.
There were union guys in there for 3 days setting that thing up. There was a Ferris wheel, there was a conveyor belt, a 20-foot tall rotating drum riser, like, and it was hilarious. And the funny part was the guy that directed the video was the guy that directed the Milli Vanilli videos. I don't know why they were like, we should get that guy. But it was. And so we have this gigantic stage and all these cameras and everything, and we're running around and going crazy. And they got to edit the video, and this was like 18 hours. Like, we got there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't think we got done until like 10 o'clock at night. And you just hear the same song all day, really loud too. They had a giant PA pointed back at us, so you feel like you're doing anything. And they got to edit the video, and they realized they didn't have any shots of our faces. They had all these shots of us like running around and jumping off of things, but you couldn't. There was none of that, And
That's kind of an important detail, don't you
exactly,
think?
exactly. So then we did another video that was cheap, that was $80,000.
Bargain basement.
Yeah, that was shot on the same. It's funny. There's like 3 videos. I think Van Halen did it first. The Pound Cake video, where they're on that like graded stage. We used that same stage 3 weeks later to shoot our video, and that was the cheap one, and that was $80,000.
Yeah, piece of cake. Piece of cake. For those of you who are going to go look up, what was the name of the King of the Hill song? Remind me.
I Do You was that's the big one. And then If I Say was the more low key video.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, so look for the guy with the long black hair, because it was much longer.
I still look relatively the same. I'm not as pretty as I once was, but
who among us is? Right?
Exactly.
But since the beard, I like to think I've gone up a notch or two, but neither here nor there right now. You and I also bonded over a mutual love of certain pop music, which, to look at us, people might not figure on that. And I use the word pop music loosely. I call it IntelliPop. It's intelligent pop music. The XTC, Amy Mann type bond. And in particular, we both love Michael Penn.
Yes.
That's just one of those guys that he's just one of those artists that just should be a part of your world, no matter what. What drew you to him?
I heard No Myth first. That was, I think, how everybody heard him the first time.
I remember that.
And then Long Way Down. When I heard that was like, but I'm like, that's because I love I love the minor keys. I love
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sad, and he has all those sevenths in there. I love sevenths, and um, so yeah, that and the melody, the lyric, like everything about that song was perfect. The solo, I don't even know what the solo is in that song.
I don't
What
either. I saw a guy
instrument?
with a keyboard, but
Yeah, I don't know what instrument that's played on, but whatever it is, it's just like, oh, that's the perfect, that's the perfect complement to the way the rest of this song sounds.
yeah,
I loved him. I loved Jellyfish that came around that time. I don't know
right.
if you're hip to those guys, but that
It
was
was. I remember a song or two from back then, but I'll have to. I
you
got to
should
dive back
revisit
into that.
that stuff. These are the new Jellyfish of these guys.
Ah,
Are you hip? Are you hip
I
to the
am.
Lemon Twigs?
I am not. Now you're just giving me homework to do here. So
Dude, these guys and their children. They're like 20 years old. They're kids. They've been doing it for like 5 or 6
babies.
years. Yeah, and they're like little tiny wizard people. I'm not kidding you. The little guy, there's the brothers. There's two of them, and the two guys that play in their backing band are amazing as well.
Right.
Um, but there's two brothers, and they are the little guys, maybe 5'3" or 5'4", might weigh 90 pounds. And they're like little cute little elfin geniuses, and like it's Big Star, it's Jellyfish, it's Elvis Costello,
Yeah.
it's like all the goods. Oh, it's some Todd Rundgren in there,
Sure.
Eric
Sure.
Carmen, like all the '70s. Like, dude, just after we get off this, Google the Lemon Twigs. You
Yes,
will
sir.
lose your mind.
I,
Yes.
I like that. I love the intelligent pop music. And really fast, I share one of my other favorite memories with you is when you were playing Long Way Down when I walked into the shop one day and you got to the bridge. And let's be clear, folks, I don't sing for people, until very, very recently. But that's another story. But I couldn't help myself. You got to the bridge and I just started singing. And what got me was you stopped singing and you just kept playing and you got that smile on your face right now. That's the smile you had on your face. Like, what is happening right now? Where did this come from? But it just worked. And that's the kind of stuff that just deserved to be, all over MTV and the radio. And
Yeah.
it just wasn't, and the fact that Michael Penn is married to Amy Mann,
Uh-huh.
where you can get up and write an amazing song that day and later find out you didn't even write the best song in the house, let alone, in the country, do they come to the breakfast nook and just kind of, swap ideas or what have you?
You have like a a little bowl in the middle of each table with capos on it, and
I can completely see that. That makes sense. Now, did that spur your band, the Incurables? Because they kind of remind me of going down that vein, not identical but similar.
right. Yeah, they're the Incurables started I want to say 2007-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always played with lead singers. And I got to a point with lead singers where I was like, man, and I always sang, but I never was the lead singer.
Right,
Um,
right.
and I finally just kind of got to a point where it's like, I'm going to try and do this myself. And I had a little studio in my basement and I had a microphone and I wrote some things. And then I learned I wanted to present myself as a singer.
Okay.
And I learned how to do it sitting in a basement and overdubbing and overdubbing and doing it again and finding out how to use my voice uh, as a voice instead of trying to find a voice in this thing. It
Right.
was actually my acoustic voice, um, and yeah, I've always written, but I would always hand these songs off to other people to then uh, interpret. And I
Yeah.
thought it was time for me to have my own interpretation of what I wanted to do. So that's where that started. You know,
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, a couple of good records. And I think you mentioned that you're starting up again, where you've been
Mhm.
working for them. You've been working for yourself, but you've been working on songs for that particular group.
Yes,
Cool.
we just did our first gig in I think 6 years.
Okay. Wow.
We played it off Broadway about a month ago, and played 5 new songs that we'd never played before. And it's just been really fun to get back. And, COVID put there were probably a lot of things that would have happened sooner, but that kind of stuff wasn't going to happen during all that. And now that I think we're going downhill on the other side of that, that people are like, hey, it's Tuesday, let's hang out and make some noise. And people are more able to do those kinds of things like we used to do back in the old days.
Back in the olden days, Sonny, back when I was your age, I understand. How much would you say your songwriting approach has changed from 6 years ago?
It's mainly different because I have a kid. Which, like, these are all post. My son's name is Rocket, and so these are all post Rocket songs.
Gotcha.
And one of the things when I started writing, I was listening to some of the old records and just how like sad everything was. Like I don't have a whole lot of happy. I don't have a whole lot of happy ending songs, and my friends would be like, "Man, you're such a upbeat guy, and you write all these miserable songs."
It's minor keys. There's not a lot of joy found in minor keys.
I have songs about dying in plane crashes and killing yourself, and none of the relationships work out in the songs.
Basically, you're Amy Mann. I understand.
Yeah, so they're all pretty dark. So one of the things I tried to focus on this time was to write more uplifting, more happy, more positive in that direction.
I got you.
And there's a new song called "I Hope You Never Run Out of People That Love You," and it was Rocket and I sitting in the car, and there was a guy on the corner, cardboard sign, which we see all the time.
Oh yeah.
And Rocket said, "Dad, what's that guy doing?" I said, "Well, he's asking people to give him money." And he's like, "Why doesn't he get some money from his mom?" And I said, "Man, his mom might not be around to be able to help him."
Wow. Okay.
And he said, "Well, doesn't he have people that love him?" And I said, "Man, sometimes if you don't take care of the people around you, you can run out of people that love you and will help you."
Sure.
And he said, "I hope I never run out of people that love me." And then there you got song.
But you've taken a sad song to coin a phrase. You took a sad song and made it better.
Made it better, right? That's the idea.
That's awesome, though.
It's stuff like that where I've made a concerted effort there I still write sad. Like the first song I wrote back was a song about a deer that falls in love with a semi. It's called "She Was an 18-Wheeler" is the name of the song. And it's the same breakup song I always write, except this time I'm a deer and a truck runs me over, So.
That's what we call a very physical relationship right there.
Yes.
Very interesting. But you're happy, I'm happy. That's the important thing. I'm looking forward to hearing it all. We can discuss that when you plug yourself in a few minutes.
Okay.
Let's